what's happening in the subconscious mind, what's happening in the emotional body, what are the blockages, so that you might want something on a conscious level, and on an unconscious level it's not happening, or you're not allowing it to happen, right? And so my greatest gift to you is the gift of awareness. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. This is your host, Natalie Facey, and it's always such a pleasure and a treat to be spending this time with you. It is fall in New York City. It's a lovely, windy day with the leaves of the trees changing to bright orange and red and yellow, and it's just so beautiful, so beautiful. I'm here sitting in my living room with a cup of ginger tea. In my diffuser there is some I think orange that's being diffused, so a lot of warmth around, and I wanted to share that setting with you because the topic that we're diving into today, it's going to be somewhat of a deep one. It's one that I have sat with for a while. It's one that has been germinating for a while, and it feels like it's the time to share it. Yeah, so as you saw from the title, we're going to be talking about why people don't heal, right? Why you or I might go through something and not heal, right? And not heal emotionally. And I don't think that we typically make the conscious decision not to heal. I don't think we say, oh, I'm not going to heal. I'm just going to sit here with this pain. I don't think that often happens. What we do instead is that we make an unconscious decision to stay where we are, right? And so if someone were to say, I am going to just wave this magical wand, right? I met this magical person who gave me this wand, and I'm just going to wave this wand so that you get everything that you ever wanted, right? It's going to remove all of the obstacles, all of the challenges, so that everything that you've wanted, you instantly get it. And if you think of that, instantly getting everything that you wanted, like the baby in your arms right now, the perfect job, the perfect relationship. If you think of all of those things being real right now, there might actually be resistance that comes up in your system, right? If you think of any discomfort or conditions that you're experiencing in your body, if you think of those things just disappearing and no longer being your reality, there might actually be resistance that comes up. And I'll share more about why that is, because it isn't that we don't want these beautiful things, it's that there are things that are a part of our subconscious mind. There are blockages that are part of our emotional body that prevents us from fully saying yes, right? Fully saying yes to all that we want. And so staying where we are, it's essentially continuing to experience the pain, right? Not saying yes to healing and staying where we are is essentially continuing to experiencing the pain. So I've been coaching for years, and so I've seen this for years, but I've also been doing my own personal healing and spiritual growth work for years. So I have seen the patterns that have shown up in my own experience. I have seen my own resistance, even when it made no sense. I have seen the times when I allowed myself to stay stuck in pain, or the times when I pushed against receiving the support that would bring me to the next level, that would essentially liberate me, right? And so know that I am not coming from a place of judgment or criticism. I am coming from a place of experiencing this myself and seeing it in others, right? I am a firm believer that the greatest gift that I can give you is your freedom. The greatest gift that I can give you is your freedom. And I don't have a magical wand. I won't wave the wand and you'll instantly be free. But my way of connecting you with your freedom is to make you aware of what's actually happening in the background, what's happening in the subconscious mind, what's happening in the emotional body, what are the blockages, so that you might want something on a conscious level, and on an unconscious level it's not happening or you're not allowing it to happen, right? And so my greatest gift to you is the gift of awareness. Okay. All right, so there are two main categories that I have identified that we use to stay in pain. Two main categories that we are in one or the other that doesn't allow us to heal. And the first one is staying in pain for protection. Pain for protection. And the second is pain for punishment. Now, that one's super interesting. So, we're going to start with the easier one, the one that's a bit easier to digest, which is the pain for protection. Okay. So, under this category of pain for protection, or another way to summarize this category is someone saying, I'm not doing it, it's going to hurt, right? And there's so many examples of this. It could be not wanting to go to the dentist, right? You have a toothache, but you resist going to the dentist because you think that being at the dentist is actually going to be more painful than just sitting with the pain and hoping that it goes away. Or it might be not wanting to hear a diagnosis, not wanting to learn more about a diagnosis, because being in this place of blindness or unawareness actually feels safer than having full awareness of what's happening, right? And again, that's the fear that the more you learn, the more it's going to hurt. Or actually going towards a solution, that solution is going to be painful. So, how this shows up on the emotional healing journey, an example could be saying, or not necessarily saying, but on an unconscious level, what's happening is that you don't talk about the baby, or you don't want to talk about the baby or the loss or the fertility challenges. Or it could be that you don't want to think about the baby. And again, you aren't consciously saying and doing these things, they're happening on an unconscious level, right? And so, from now you might start to notice, if someone brings up the baby, if there's a reminder of the baby, you might start to notice how quickly you try to brush it aside, how quickly you try to think about something else or do something else so that you don't have to go back to those memories, right? And so we often expect that, because the memories are painful, because the memories bring up difficult emotions, then healing, which often involves going back to the memories, then healing is also going to be hard, right? And so you avoid the emotional healing because you expect it to be hard. Okay, that isn't always the case, but I'll share more about that later on in the episode. What is really important here, or one of the things that's really important, is that the main emotions that are the most difficult to deal with are guilt and shame, right? And in going deeper into the healing, in going deeper into the story, in going deeper into the emotions, it's likely that you'll meet upon guilt and shame depending on your specific story, right? So the guilt might come from thinking that you did something wrong, something that you did caused the loss, or something that you did caused the infertility diagnosis, something that you did caused whatever thing happened that you didn't want to happen. Now, the other emotion, which is even more challenging to work through than guilt, is shame. Now, shame says that there's actually something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your body, or you are inherently flawed. Right? Now, both of those things are so hard to work through if you're working through them alone. And so, what usually happens is that someone might decide to do other things that don't involve emotional healing, right? Other things that don't involve releasing the guilt or the shame, which, by the way, is held in the body. All of the emotions, the anger, the resentment, the fear, all of the emotions are held in the body. There's no other place for them to go if they're not being released. They're held in the body, right? And so, what usually happens is that there are external changes that are happening. And I say external, meaning it's outside of the body, right? So, there might be changes to your environment. Like you might decide to uh, move into a new house. I moved, or my husband and I moved to a whole new state. But that's a whole other episode that we can talk about at another time, right? So there are changes and maneuvering and things that you're doing externally, still to move towards the goal of having your baby and having the family that you want, but the internal healing isn't done. Or the internal healing might be done to an extent, right? Like you might decide, all right, yeah, we've done the thing, we've done the grieving, we've done the ceremony, we lit the candle, I'm good now. Right. And so the other things that you might do might involve getting a new job, or pursuing an advanced degree, or getting a certification in something. And again, a new house. It's like putting things in place. So still moving towards your goal, right? And still feeling as though you're accomplishing and achieving. And by the way, that does help with any sense of shame that you might be holding, right? So shame, again, is the sense that you are inherently wrong. There's something wrong with you. And so when you're able to achieve things, and when you're able to move up whatever ladder we have established in our society, then it does help you to feel better, right? And so I want you to be aware of what happens. I want you to be aware of how things play out unconsciously and consciously, right? And so there's no criticism in this. There is no judgment in this. This is all for your awareness, right? And I can share my own examples of those things because it's like we're doing the best we can, right? So if you don't feel supported to work through the painful emotions, you're going to work through what you feel like you can in each moment. Okay. What I want to go back to is that the emotional hurt is still there. It's still being held in your body. The healing still needs to be done. And what happens is that if the healing isn't done, or if enough emotional healing isn't done, then it means that you're left with a very unstable, and I'll call it emotional foundation, right? Meaning on an ongoing basis, you might have anxiety. You're definitely holding fear, right? And then the other big thing is that as you decide to go back on the pregnancy journey, so as you decide, all right, we're going to try again, or we're going to try out, IVF or fertility treatment, like we're going to go back on this journey. So when you decide that you're ready, you have very little capacity for anything to go wrong, right? There's very little space for anything to go wrong because you haven't received the support to build your emotional resilience. You haven't received the support to learn to work through anything that comes up, right? And so it's so important that your healing is done. Of course, it's important that you get a job that might be less stressful if stress was one of the things that you were experiencing before that might have led to complications. Like all of the external things are still important, but at the end of the day, it's like your ability to work through the external things, it's what you're holding inside, right? So your ability to work through a challenge, that is dependent on how you're perceiving that challenge. Your perception is formed by what you're holding inside. And so the emotional healing always has to be done. Okay. So that's the first one. Pain for protection, staying in pain, holding the emotional pain in your body because you're afraid of what you might meet as you're healing. You're afraid of the shame you might meet on your healing journey, or the guilt, or just that it's going to be hard, right? Because it is hard. How I like to think of this is that it's the pain that ends the pain. And this isn't an expression that I came up with. I read this expression in, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom from Dr. Christian Northrup. And she cited some other author of another book. And I think they were looking at studies of women and birthing people who've gone through emotional trauma, and what they were still holding in their bodies. I think that's what it was about. And this guy was saying that the pain that ends the pain, it's like the bit of discomfort that you have to go through initially to release all of the discomfort afterwards. Or if not all of it, to release so much of it afterwards. Right? So it's doing the one hard thing so that you get to experience less shame or no shame. You get to experience less guilt or no guilt. You get to experience less fear or no fear, and you get to experience more freedom. Right? And so, yeah, that was a big one. The pain that ends the pain. It's like diving into the pool, and at first it's cold, or it's colder than your body temperature. And then you realize, oh, this actually feels so lovely and so free. Yeah. So the next category of staying in pain is pain for punishment. And this is when someone actually says, I don't deserve to be healed. Well, they actually don't say it, but they feel it. And because they feel as though they don't deserve to be healed, they either procrastinate on taking action on their healing, or they might straight up refuse the opportunity to be healed. And I feel that this happens when someone has really connected with the guilt and the shame, like they're actually in it, right? So I spoke earlier about meeting up on guilt or meeting up on shame, right? Or having a fear of meeting up on it in the pain for protection category. So you suspect that you'll meet up on guilt, or you suspect that you'll meet up on shame, and you don't actually want to dive deeper into your healing because it means that you'll find more of it. You'll find more reasons to tell yourself that you did something wrong, or more reasons to feel bad about yourself, right? Now, for this other category, which is actually feeling as though you don't deserve to be healed, you don't deserve to experience your freedom, I usually find that this person is in the shame and is in the guilt, right? And so their resistance is them believing that because they are guilty, then they deserve to be punished. And so it's actually prolonging the pain as a form of self punishment. And I usually find that when this happens, it's because there was already some deep trauma that occurred before. It's already that uh, because of something that happened, this person has been left with a fragile foundation, right? And you can consider this as the emotional foundation or a fragile sense of self. So they might have feelings of a low self worth. Um, yeah, this one's a really difficult one, or it's a difficult one for the person to be in because there is, not only is there little mobility or little movement towards healing, but the belief is there that they actually don't deserve it, right? And so when they're faced with the opportunity to heal, they might resist. And this idea of punishment, it's coming from what we're taught through religion. It's coming from how we might be raised, what we're taught in school, what we see in the movies, the bad guys get punished. And so it's something that is a deep part of our culture, right? And if someone going through a pregnancy loss or infertility feels as though it's their fault, and that's the place where they're sitting right now, that's the place where they are, it's their fault, they did something wrong, then there's a shutdown that happens that doesn't allow them to heal, or doesn't even allow them to be open to healing. So it's sort of like creating this hell for yourself. Yeah, yeah, that's a hard one. The reason why I'm sitting with that is that you don't deserve to be punished after having a pregnancy loss or an infertility diagnosis. It's actually the opposite. You deserve to be cared for and loved. Something has to occur so that that person is able to connect with their sense of self-worth. Right? Something has to occur so that that person is able to see that they are actually worthy of healing. That no matter what happened, no matter how it played out, no matter what role they played or what role they think they should have played, they are worthy of healing. They're worthy of love and compassion and self compassion. Right. And I also know that what helps in these situations, because trust me, I have definitely come up on experiences in my own life where I know that I'm resisting, I know that I'm getting in my own way. And so when I become aware of it, I make agreements with myself. How much freedom will I allow myself in this experience? How much joy will I allow myself in this experience? And it feels like such a weird thing because, like, who wouldn't want all of the freedom in the world and all of the joy in the world and all of the abundance and all of the good stuff, right? But as humans, we get in our own way. I remember one of my girlfriends reminding me the other day of something that I used to say to her. Um, so you might have a piece of cake or whatever, and you call it a guilty pleasure, and then you decide to criticize yourself for having had it. And I'm like, if you're going to do it, you might as well enjoy it, right? So it's having awareness as you're going through the experience and owning your stuff, right? So if you are going to decide to hold back some of your joy, to hold back some of your freedom, And I'm not saying you should enjoy it, but if you're going to do it with awareness. Do it knowing that, okay, there is some part of me right now that is keeping myself stuck. I don't know exactly where that's coming from. I don't know why it's happening, but I am going to make an agreement with myself that I am going to allow myself this much joy. I am going to allow myself to go that far. And what happens over time is that your threshold for joy increases, your threshold for freedom increases, right? So that you're able to take in more without the self-punishment. Okay? I might have gone on a little bit of a tangent there, but it might make sense. It might resonate with someone. Okay? So I want to summarize the categories again. It is pain for protection, so not doing something because you are afraid of the emotions, the memories that will come up, so you're protecting yourself from going through that experience, or protecting yourself from feeling as though you have to relive that experience in order to heal. That isn't the case. You don't have to relive an experience to heal from it. And the second is pain for punishment, actually believing that you don't deserve to be healed because you did something wrong, or there's something wrong with you. So you don't deserve to get better. You deserve to continue staying in the suffering, and no one deserves to continue staying in the suffering. No one. I firmly believe that we're always doing the best that we can. Right? There is a quote that I put up on my Instagram earlier this week that the reason why shame comes up is because you have learned more now than you knew before, right? So when there's when there's a memory or whatever, and you're like, damn, I wish I didn't do that, or oh, I can't believe I did that, that feeling inside, like, how did I do that? And it's because right now you have greater awareness. It's because right now you have evolved, you're a different version of yourself. But in that moment, those years ago, those months ago, those weeks ago, even yesterday, you were doing the best you could. Just as in this moment right now, you're doing the best you can. Right. And so it's having so much compassion for yourself that in each moment you're doing the best you can with the resources you have, the support you have, and know that you're more aware of what happens internally, right? Know that you're more aware of the unconscious behavior that is causing, it could be, some people call it self-sabotage. you know I just think of it as staying stuck, not being healed. And also know that healing is an ongoing process, right? Like, I have been working on my healing for years, and it sort of tickles me that I get to go deeper, right? Like, I remember doing a breath work session a couple of months ago, and I was like, wow, I can feel more openness and freedom in my body. This is wild. That I would think, oh, I'm good. And then there's even more. I find that so fascinating, because it means that you can just be a more pure, more beautiful, more authentic, more wild, more joyful version of yourself. Right. And of course, this is making me think of a program that I just created called Rebirth. And, this was the impetus for Rebirth. It's uncovering, like, what's the version of yourself that wants to be birthed right now. Because we talk a lot about doing things for our babies, preparing our bodies for our babies, right? The name of this podcast is Preparing for Pregnancy, right? And so we talk a lot about what we need to do in order to get the thing outside of us. But what about us? Like, didn't you come in as a baby? Didn't you come in as a soul, having your own dreams, wanting to live your own life? Didn't you come in with your own desires? When were those shoved aside? And how long will they be shoved aside? And so, rebirth is reconnecting to who you wanted to be before you were hurt, who you set out to be before you met on the experiences that caused trauma, that caused you to deprioritize yourself, that caused you to decide that you were no longer important, that the most important thing was now going to be having a baby. And let me be very clear that having babies, of course, it's beautiful. Of course, it's still a part of the goal, but you are the priority. Because if you're not feeling healed and if you're not feeling whole, it means that you're entering into parenthood with that unstable foundation. And even before parenthood, into another pregnancy with an unstable foundation. And it means that you're moving through the rest of your life with the hurt and with the trauma. And there's so much research on how trauma impacts a pregnancy. I mentioned that this was going to be one of the deep topics, as most of the things that I talk and care about often are, because I like to go deep. I like to go to the essence of things. I think that's where the real work happens. And so, my encouragement to you is to take the next step for your healing, right? If there's something that you're being called to, take the next step for your healing. Because, this is the one life you have. This is the one life you have. And going through painful experiences doesn't mean that you have to feel broken for the rest of your life. In fact, there's an opportunity to be even stronger because it requires more strength for you to overcome something that breaks you. And so imagine that, feeling stronger than you've ever felt before. Not trying to be the person you were before the loss or the infertility diagnosis or before the trauma, before the hurt, but being an even stronger version of yourself, a more confident, a more joyful, a more radiant, a more loving version of yourself, a version of yourself that is able to accept more love. You're so worthy of that, so worthy. And so do the thing that will support you in your healing. Before we go, I do want to share more about the course that I have coming up. Again, it's called Rebirth. It launches the second week of November, which is a couple of weeks from now. Um, it is something. It's something. So the class already has registrants. There are a few spots left. And so highly recommend that you go and check it out. It's on my website, nataliefacey.com/rebirth, REBIRTH. I'll also include the info here in the show notes. And we're going through 4 months of being in a cocoon together, 4 months of going deeper in your healing, 4 months of having the support to go deeper in your healing, and doing that in community. Right, doing that with others who have gone through similar experiences. being able to share your experiences, being able to be witness, being able to witness others, being able to admit things that you haven't been able to admit to your partner, being able to be understood, and actually having the tools to work through your healing, having the tools so that no matter what life throws your way, you can actually work through it. You actually have the foundation to build your emotional resilience. All right, so let me quickly take you through what we'll be going into month by month. So we start in November, and there are two sessions each month, meaning we meet every 2 weeks. And in addition to meeting every 2 weeks as a group, there are also two one-to-one sessions with me. So you get to dive deeper into anything that came up in the group session that you'd like to process more deeply. Okay, so session one, we're creating sacred spaces for your healing. Sacred spaces, this is where you create an intentional space. It can be a physical space or an energetic space, like deciding this is when I heal, right? I'm taking this time for my healing. And what does that include, right? What are those tools? What are those modalities that are important to you for your individual healing? So it's putting together that toolkit so that the next time you go to a doctor's appointment and you worry about being triggered, you actually have the tools to work through that. The next time your partner says something to you that makes you snap, you have the tools to work through that. Okay, so it's building your toolkit, and that's important for your foundation as we go through the course, because we'll be using these tools and expanding on these tools. All right, session two, your emotions are magic, and it's understanding the beauty of the emotions. So, shame and guilt, which are some of the harder ones to work through, right? It's learning how does shame and guilt interact with the other emotions, and what are the practices that you can use to work through shame and guilt. So one teaser, one preview is that the emotions are on a scale or a ladder. And at the very, very bottom of that scale or ladder, it's depression, despair. And above that, it's grief. Above that, it's shame and guilt. And so know that when you're there, there's nowhere to go but up, right? And we support you in working through going up into optimism, into joy, into love and acceptance. Okay. So in December, we dive into a session called Your Body's Beautiful Anatomy, and it's understanding the anatomy of the body, the anatomy of your beautiful, gorgeous body, how things are connected and how the emotions are connected to different parts of your body, and how there might be blockages based on what's being held in the body, and how to release those blockages so that fertility and pregnancy and experiencing pleasure in your body is actually a smoother process for you. Session four, we're continuing with the theme of the body, and we dive into body forgiveness and self compassion. And I like that session four on forgiveness and self compassion happens after the anatomy of the body, because once you're able to picture where different things are in your body, then there is a stronger connection or a stronger awareness to what you're holding where, right? Where has the shame been held? Where has the guilt or the anger been held in your body? And then we get to release that. We get to shower the body with love and self compassion. January, we will be doing a detox and a resetting of the physical body. So I talk a lot about the emotions, but all aspects of the body, they're all connected, right? So we'll be going into detoxing the body, resetting the body, getting rid of all of the holiday gunk that we might have accumulated, but also knowing that there is there are a lot of toxins that can impact fertility and pregnancy. And if you listened to episode 32 with Dr. Monique Maza, she talked about that as well. Okay, so session 5 in January will support you in releasing toxins in the body. Session 6, meeting your inner mother, caring for your inner child. And I am super, super excited about session 6. It's been weird as I've been putting this together because some of these topics I just want to dive into them right away. However, there's a process to this, right? There's a lot of spaciousness. This is 4 months as we go through this meeting, every 2 weeks. So you have space to work through the things that are coming up. You'll have support to work through the things that are coming up. But this one on meeting your inner mother, it's going to be such a good one, right? Because, we are often nurturing to other people. We are often so considerate to other people because that's how we're socialized. We're socialized to be the caretakers. And when when it's time for us to turn that love and that nurturance towards ourselves, there's a different version that shows up. It isn't the same nurturing and loving version. And so that's your inner mother. That's your inner mother. I know your wheels are turning now. I know you're like, oh, my inner mother. Who is she? So yes, we'll be going into that. How has she been formed? What led to your inner mother and her character? Yes, so much there to share. So much. All right, session 7, which happens in February. This session is bringing healing to your intimate relationship. And I promise you that I did not, so January is the reset month. February, which obviously is when Valentine's happens, that's when we focus on relationships. This was not intentional. I I am convinced that this was just the flow from spirit, right? This is how it needed to happen. So February, it's bringing healing to your intimate relationships. It's understanding yourself better, right? And understanding your partner better, and understanding the dynamics in your relationship, and how to bring healing to that. Like what's happening that leads to the arguments and the annoyances and the things that are not expressed. What's happening there? And how do you bring more empathy, more compassion, more love? How do you release what you're both holding so that there isn't this massive thing, massive invisible thing growing in between both of you and pushing you further apart? All right, sirens are here. Okay, and then our final session is liberation. Liberating you so that you can be the version of yourself that you came here to be. Liberating you so that when you show up as a parent, when you show up as the partner, when you show up as the person who's in your boardroom or leading your company, you're showing up liberated as the best version of yourself. All right, so check out Rebirth. There was a lot of love that went into putting this together. And there's actually a quote that just popped up as I'm scrolling up the page. This is a quote from me, from my own experience. And it says, I have died and been reborn 1,000 times. And in each cycle, meeting a version of myself that was more authentic, more liberated, more powerful. And that is what I want for you. So, yes, check out Rebirth. There are only a few spots left because the course is only taking 8 people. I want it to be intimate so that we get to go deep and we get to have the container that's needed for healing. So, it's your turn. It's your turn. I've shared the resistance why people don't heal. I've shared the fears that come up why people don't heal. And I want you to decide what's best for you. I want you to decide when you're ready and if you're ready. And if you're not ready, I want you to take responsibility of what you're holding, right? Not from a place of judgment or shame, but really acknowledging, all right, this is what I'm holding. This is the support that I need. And so if you find that you're wanting a bit more support, you know where to find me. I'm also including the link here so you can grab some time on my calendar and let's connect. Let's chat through what's been coming up for you. Let's chat through what has come up for you from this episode in particular. If something came up that you're like, damn, that's what's happening with me. That's what I'm holding. That's the fear that I have. Let's talk through it because you're not meant to feel as though you're in this state of brokenness or in this state of stuckness. Because of the pain that you went through, there is actually the potential energetically. This is a law of the universe, right? Whatever you've gone through, the same potential exists for you to go through the opposite of that, for you to experience the beauty of that, the joy of that. And that's what we're going to harness. Okay, so I am sending you so much love, so much love for all that you do and where you are and all that you've done and where you're looking to go. All right, I'll see you in the next episode.